So, in the last episode, we were looking at suicide and what to possibly do if you're contemplating it, or if you know somebody that's contemplating it. And we were getting ready to touch on some resources. That's what we're going to do in this episode of part 2 of preventing suicide and supporting those affected. Tune in. Welcome back, everyone, to the Joy Without Justification podcast. We are your one-stop spot for finding peace, purpose, and presence. No explanation is needed. Like I said in the intro, Dan, we talked a little bit of what suicide is and what maybe some of the signs were of it.
Yeah.
We even heard from you on how you had dealt with it. So now let's talk about finding help. Even if you're contemplating suicide and you are having your second thoughts, like you always are thinking it, but yet somewhere in the back of your head, you're like wanting somebody to show that there's hope, there's help. You don't have to do this.
Yeah.
Like you want somebody to talk you out of this. So are there any resources available for this, Dan?
Well, yeah. First of all, if you can, make sure that you find someone that you could talk to. Again, there's the suicide hotline. To me, I've always found that when I've had deep, things that I want to talk about, sometimes just talking to a stranger is a little easier because you feel judged.
Yeah.
Or you may not be, but you perceive it that way in your life. I would have definitely felt judged just coming from my background. You know what I mean? So it's something I never revealed to anybody.
So even if you know a trusted friend or a family member that you could sit and talk this to, do you feel that's sort of a route to go?
Oh, absolutely.
Or do you feel like it would be more along the lines of reaching out to like a therapist?
Well, I think, however you start that process, you've got to talk to someone, to kind of get the ball rolling. And maybe sometimes just getting that off your chest could be huge. So it could be a minister, it could be, a counselor, it could just be a trusted friend, whatever. Make sure then that you get yourself into some kind of counseling. Definitely. I know that, there's a lot of research around ketamine therapy. People that have suicide ideation really have a lot of recovery from that program. It's especially if you do the whole psychedelic process piece, because it kind of resets your brain.
Yeah.
And that could definitely be something that, you could be looking into. I mean, they have, outlets that do like the daily microdose as well. I would definitely talk to a medical professional. I am not one. But, I've heard, and I've had some friends that has done the program that way.
Yeah.
I actually had a couple of people in my life that, that I went to school with. We weren't like buddy hung out all the time, but there was 2 people from my school that committed suicide. And that was just hard to know. And knowing the situation to their life, I kind of see it. I think one was dealing with sexuality as well. And, in a very strict religious environment, and later in life, and I don't know the circumstances around it, but another girl I went to school with did as well. And, I can honestly say that in both cases, I might be able to see it just because of my sexuality, and the other girl just was not like real popular, but again, nothing that I ever seen from either of those two people. So I think, you're not always aware of it, and the thing to me is, we got to learn to treat people decently in our lives. And I'm not saying it's ever anybody else's fault, but I always want to be very cautious of the people in my life that I'm not saying anything that would exacerbate their mental health. Yeah. And I'm talking like religious stuff and, stuff that can really go the wrong way. But definitely try to seek some help, try to talk to somebody, and we'll put some resources in our...
Just like in part 1, we will put some resources in the description of this one as well. And I mean, even if you're listening, you can always reach out to the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988.
Yeah, just dial that on your phone, right?
988. And there is always somebody there that is willing to listen and help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk about, we've talked about the person who's planning on this. What about those they leave behind? What kind of support is there for that?
Well, wow. I can't even begin to fathom the guilt that someone would feel if their loved one did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they do. I'm sure they've somehow blamed themselves, and you can't do that either. You are not responsible for someone else's, mental health issues. And I can imagine the guilt. I know the guilt I feel just from taking care of my elderly parents. You do as well.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that. But yes, I would say the same thing. You have got to get yourself into some counseling. You have got to, talk to people. Professional medical counseling is always first and foremost, right? Always first and foremost. Then I would use your pastor or whatever.
And we both have seen this since, when I was working in hospice, and even you now working in hospice. A lot of places, hospitals, nursing homes, hospice companies have a social worker that comes and helps you through the grief counseling part of it all. Because even if it was just your child or whatever, there are people that will help you deal with and go through this grief.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And look at your mental health communities in your area, reach out to them, reach out to a hospital, even if you have to go to the ER and say, I have this problem, and I know that's scary too, because we envision when you go into the hospital and say it, that here they come and you're in lockup for 2 days or whatever. And I don't even know that that's really the case in every situation, but it's better than the alternative. It's better than the alternative.
So, in our final notes between this episode and the last one, let's just realize that suicide is a tragedy, but it can be prevented by talking openly, reaching out for help, and supporting those in need. And we can start to create a world where fewer lives are lost to suicide.
Absolutely. It's sad. And like I said, I do get it, because I have felt that way myself, that, I have wanted to die, but, I get it.
And, so Dan, is there any hope?
Well, sure. Yeah, there is. And together, we're going to kind of look at that.
All right. So If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out for the help. There is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below, or email us at joywithoutjustification@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
And thank you for joining us today.
And tune in next time when we will be discussing grief. Yes.
Funny. We're talking about helping those that may be going through the loss of someone they love.
Yeah.
And now we're going to be touching on that episode. So until then, remember, even in the darkest moments, there is hope. Kind to yourself and to others. Stay positive. Stay hopeful. Go out there. Make a difference in the world. Peace out.